hear House Bill 527.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If you could indulge me for a second, I have some constituents that are here specifically to hear this bill, and I would like to introduce them real fast before we get into the bill. I have with me Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club in Glasgow, Mary Lee England, and her teen coordinator, Haley York. And I have 3 students who I've had the pleasure of knowing, and they are Antonio Hernandez Correa, Caleb Syra, and Haley Dubert. So if you could greet them, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you and welcome.
House Bill 527 basically deals with educational stability of children and out-of-home placements. And I'm a first-term member of the House Legislature. In the 2 years I've been here, one of the things that I've been the most proud of and honored to be a part of is the bipartisan efforts we have taken to help foster children and out-of-home placement children in the state of Kentucky. I feel great about what we have done. Every day I think about what we've done to help those children's lives. So basically, I'm going to give you just a short version of this bill, and I'll let my guests introduce themselves and give more information. But the bill basically does this. If a out-of-home placement child is in a school and they are placed elsewhere, that child will be allowed to stay in the school that they have had success in. We think this is an emotional stability thing. We believe this is an educational stability thing. If they've had success, they've been moved around enough, and they don't need to be moved around as far as their school placement is concerned. That's the simple part of this bill. I'm going to allow my guests to go to it in more detail, and then we'll be glad to answer any questions after that.
Okay. So I just want to first thank the body for allowing me to be here today, especially Representative Worshner for the chairwoman. My name is Karena and I'm a current freshman at Xavier University. I'm here today to speak in order to speak on behalf of House Bill 527, which is an act relating to the educational stability of children in out-of-home placement. I'm also here to highly encourage you to rank this bill favorably and vote yes. So I came across the idea for this bill last year when I had the opportunity to tutor a young girl in foster care who, for the sake of her privacy, we'll call her Jaden. Whenever I first met Jaden, I was blown away at how much she struggled at basic division problems. She was in 5th grade, so surely she must know how to divide 30 divided by 6, right? At first, I simply thought that she didn't pay attention or honestly wasn't the brightest student. As the months trickled on, however, I learned that she was in foster care and had moved schools over 3 times in the span of 2 years. Each new placement caused her to move to a new school, each of which was in a different place in the curriculum. Further, she could wait for over a week to actually be enrolled in class due to slow record transfers. Turns out the reason she didn't know how to divide is because she'd never actually been taught. 2 years in, she had fallen so behind because of this mixture of slow record transfers and constant moving that she felt like there's no reason to even try to catch up because even if she did somehow manage to, she just moved schools in a few months anyways, so what was the point? This why try attitude extended to building relationships with peers and adults too, because she would move again, so why bother to build relationships? Over the 6 months I tutored her, we made great progress. We learned how to divide. But about 1 month before the school year ended, I went to our normal tutor session and found out that Jaden had moved to a new foster home in a new school. I haven't seen her since. The thing about Jaden is that she's not just an anomaly in our foster care system. Stories like her are so universal across the foster care system that her name might as well not even be Jaden. It might as well be 42%, to represent the 42% of foster care children who do not start school immediately due to issues with record transfers. It might as well be 50%, to represent the 50% of foster care children who will not graduate from high school. It might as well be 34%, to represent the amount of foster care children who move schools 5 or more times while in care. It might as well be exponential in order to represent the likelihood of dropping out increasing 2 times per move to a new school. And so this bill does 3 major things to help kids like Jaden. First, it spells out the process for determining if a child placed in foster care should remain in the school of origin, with the determination being based on what is in their best interest. When it is in the best interest of the child to remain in the same school, it clarifies how the transportation process will be covered. However, if it is in the best interest of a child to move schools, the bill requires that children in foster care be immediately enrolled into their new school and that their most essential records be transferred within 3 working days. to avoid losing educational days and ensure a smooth transition. That way they could spend more time learning and not waiting. As a Commonwealth, we cannot continue to neglect the educational needs and long-term success of our most vulnerable citizens. Instead, we must work to provide them with the stability and education that has been proven to counteract the trauma and abuse that they've already faced. By allowing foster care kids to be immediately enrolled in schools and back in class within 3 days, we are ensuring that they are spending less time waiting and more time in class. By allowing the best interest of the child to be included in what is best for them, we're allowing them to have a continuous education, the comfort of a familiar community, and maintain the relationships that they've already had. By allowing foster care kids to have school stability, we can improve the life of not only Jaden, but of every foster care child across our great Commonwealth of Kentucky. Thank you.
I'm Terrence Sullivan with Kentucky Youth Advocates, and I have the unfortunate position of following Karena. But I want to thank you, Chair Wuchner, and the members of the committee. Educational stability is an issue that we know has a profound impact on the outcomes for children in foster care. Last year, this bill idea was brought to us by Karena, and we were excited to work with her on improving the educational outcomes for children removed from their homes for abuse and neglect. At Kentucky Youth Advocates, we appreciate all the work that you all have undertaken as members of the House to support children in foster care, and as Representative Riley said earlier, we believe that this bill builds on that work. And although we ran out of time last year during the session to move this bill after it passed out of the Senate, the interim gave us time to work through and refine language. We were able to get input from KSBA on improving the language to ensure that the record transfer piece as well as credit transfer issues worked for schools. We were also able to work with DCBS to ensure that the language around transportation correctly reflected the agreement they put in place since last session with the Kentucky Department of Education. This bill codifies and outlines the process for DCBS and schools to maintain the educational stability for children in foster care when it's in their best interest to do so. And if that child must move schools, this makes sure that those records get transferred swiftly. This bill outlines how this process should happen to prioritize educational stability when it's appropriate, and will help in making sure that these requirements are implemented consistently across the more than 170 school districts across the Commonwealth. So we wanted to thank you all for your consideration of this measure to support the education of outcomes for children, and we welcome any questions that you might have.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. As committee staff are passing out some information and an amendment that I'm going to propose here to the bill, I've had a conversation with Representative Riley. Karena, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
What's your area of study? What would you like to do?
I'm currently a philosophy, politics, and the public major at Xavier University, and I plan on going into lobbying across Kentucky.
Watch out, folks.
Basically, Madam Chairman, the amendment deals with page 2, line 15, where it deletes the word or, and then on page 2, line 16, after parent, it inserts child placing agency or child caring facility.
We do have an agreement on that with the cabinet, and I've heard from them and it was brought to our attention that, there are private foster care agencies that contract with the cabinet, and against the transportation was the question, whether it was the cabinet or the school or how we would do this, but they just wanted to make sure that in this language, and I want to thank you, Representative Riley, for being open to the amendment, that they were included. So I'll need a motion on the adopting of the amendment. Motion made by Representative Prunty and seconded by Representative Bentley. All in favor of adopting the proposed amendment that's before us into House Bill 527. In favor say aye. Opposed? The amendment is adopted. Do you have any questions on 527? Representative Marzan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are records electronic? Are they paper? It seemed like putting everything electronically would make it so much easier.
I think in the schools there's a combination of both. I think everybody's moving forward with electronic, so I think the majority of schools are going to be electronic now.
And the essential records that would be electronic, they're currently stored in Infinite Campus, and in the bill it just says whatever the system of record is right now in case that changes. But those essential ones for enrollment are kept electronically, so they could just be granted access in the next school to be able to see it.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question, and my question deals with the cost of transportation because of school districts and going in and out of a district. What is the cost of that transportation?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Kaywood. I'm with the Department for Community-Based Services. I'm not certain what school districts pay. However, if a child is outside of district and no bus is provided, we can negotiate payment on behalf of a child in care.
Okay, I think that Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I think it makes sense. I think the explanation for why it's necessary is important, and it's something that needs to be done. But I think the cost is of concern. And Mr. Sullivan, I agree with you. Going after Karena is a tough. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Have a motion, Representative McCoy. Second by Representative Prunty. All in favor of Secretary, take the roll.
Representative Bentley,
Yes.
Representative Benvenuti, Representative George Brown,
Yes.
Representative Larry Brown, Representative Elliott, Representative Jenkins, Representative Marzian, Representative McCoy,
Yes.
Representative Meyer, Representative Mosier, Representative Owens, Representative Gibbons Prunty.
Permission to explain my vote. I proudly served on the foster care and adoption work group. Representative Jenkins co-chaired, and we think we did good work. I think it just builds on it, and I proudly say yes. I also support all the work of the KYA, so say yes, thank you.
Representative Riley,
Yes.
Representative Weber, Chairwoman Wishner.
Yes. House Bill 527 passes favorably. I would entertain a motion to roll the amendment into a committee sub. I have a motion by Representative McCoy, a second by Representative somebody. Marzian, thank you, down here. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. You are eligible for consent. Prefer to have your bill on consent?
On the floor, or consent? Consent means we don't go on the floor. Okay, they're fine with consent. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second for consent. All in favor of House Bill 527 on consent? Any opposed?